And tonight we're taking an in-depth look at one of the issues the Biden administration says is a factor in gun violence, and that's ghost guns, which may be a term that some of you might be unfamiliar with. So the term typically refers to a firearm that does not have a traceable serial number. Most times people can assemble the guns themselves with parts that they actually find online. In many cases, the parts are up for sale, are used to modify existing guns, which in itself is not illegal, excuse me. Think of it like a process of like buying a new part for your car, but to make it more functionally effective. Some elected officials and gun control advocates do, however, fear that manufacturing guns from a variety of parts can lead to be more dangerous and untraceable, such as street weapons. And around the nation, we're continuing to see mass shootings. In the last 24 hours, 2 shootings happened, one in South Carolina and then another one in Texas. But first, let's go ahead and take a closer look at the deadly shooting in South Carolina. Deputies in York County say 5 people, including 2 children, are dead and another person is injured. And this all happened late Wednesday night when deputies responded to reports of a shooting inside of a home. And that's where they found a well-known doctor in the area, his wife, and their grandchildren shot to death. An investigation into the motive behind the shooting is still underway. Meanwhile, in Texas this afternoon, 1 person is dead after a shooting at a cabinet store. Police there say the shooter was an employee at the store. 4 other people were taken to the hospital, but it's not clear what condition they are in. And at this hour, the suspected gunman remains missing as investigators try to determine a motive. And this is just the latest in other mass shooting incidents that we've seen over the last few weeks. So if you remember, back on March 17th, a gunman killed 8 people at several different locations in Atlanta, Georgia. Most of the victims were Asian American. Next, 10 people were killed inside of a grocery store in Boulder, Colorado. Those victims ranged in age from 20 to 65 years old, even including a police officer who leaves behind a wife and 5 children. Then days later, on March 31st, a gunman killed 4 people inside of an office building in Orange, California. And investigators say that shooter knew the victims, including a 9-year-old boy that was killed that night. Data shows that more people in the U.S. die at the hands of a firearm than any other in the nation. In 2019, more than 14,000 people were killed in gun-related homicides, and other nations fall far behind the U.S. based on this metric. But that does not mean that other countries are free of violent crimes. Now, in countries where gun ownership is more rare, there are reports of beatings, stabbings, and rapes at a far higher rate than those in the United States. Bakersfield Congressman Kevin McCarthy weighed in on the Biden administration's plan to enact stricter gun control laws, saying Democrats are taking the wrong approach. He said, in part, instead of targeting criminals, they passed legislation that adds more hurdles for Americans to keep themselves and their families safe, penalizing common private transfers, creating a de facto national gun registry, and ending the 3-day process to sale. These actions, like Biden's executive orders, are not in response to the facts, and said they are obvious attempts to cater to gun control activists. Congressman McCarthy also said today that with new gun regulations come infringement of Second Amendment rights. But despite pushes to restrict ownership over the years, Americans still own a lot of guns. And we're taking a deeper look into those numbers tonight. The United States has the highest rates of gun ownership compared to other nations. And this chart that you're looking at right now, that shows that Americans own roughly 90 guns per 100 people. Even in California, the state with the strictest gun control laws in the entire nation, roughly 4.2 million adults own guns, and that's about 14% of the state's population. And as we mentioned earlier, the new changes the Biden administration is set to roll out won't have much of an impact on gun owners in California, since most of those measures are already in place here.